And language is like an interesting thing too, because there's all these rules and they teach you these rules, like, and I realized that I think one of your greatest strengths as a writer is being able to recognize where those rules are and where you have room and freedom for you to do other things with those rules and pretty much create your own from there.
Welcome to another episode of In the Arts. This podcast is a deep dive into the arts industry where I speak with creative professionals about what they do and why they do it. I am your host, Tani Fosdyke, and in this episode I speak with rapper and spoken word poet Tenda McFly. We talk about experimentation with the spoken word, the links between poetry and rap, and the freedom of creating work outside of the institution. Our chat really solidified to me one of the reasons I've done this podcast, and that is I think it's super powerful to talk to people about things that they're skilled and passionate about that might not have been in your orbit before, so you can have your eyes opened to learn about creativity in a new way. And that's how I kind of felt about rap by the end of our chat, and I'm just really thankful for that. And I'm also very thankful because Tenda has been very generous in providing one of his songs, Aha Okay, to be played at the end of this podcast episode. So please stay tuned to listen to that, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome. How are you today?
I am good. I should say that again, shouldn't I? I am good.
You're good.
Yes,
yeah.
I'm doing well.
Use the microphone.
I use the microphone. We're getting there.
So you should just start by asking people, like, outside of kind of like your expertise, which is rap and spoken word poetry, what other art forms do you enjoy?
I enjoy going to the movies. I enjoy I enjoy watching like TV shows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like I'm always watching like, say, Avatar, and
oh, cool.
Yeah, that's just like full of life lessons. I was just reflecting on that, like with one of my friends, just being like, it has full of life, a lot of life lessons, and they were also saying that it's probably one of the, I don't know do you know Avatar?
I know the movie.
Oh, no, not the movie.
Yeah, I think I know the TV. I haven't watched it.
Yeah.
It's the one with like the
Last Airbender?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's silly, but at the same time, it has like a lot of really pertinent like life lessons.
It's
and
the power of fiction.
Yeah, and they have just like great episode after great episode. So my friend was saying that it's the greatest TV show ever.
Oh, wow. I've never thought about that.
Yeah. So
let's get onto it.
Yeah, I should.
Yeah. And what sort of films have you seen recently?
I'm like really basic when it comes to like what I like as far as films. I know that's probably me judging myself, but yeah, like was just watching the It movie that came out.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. What else have I really seen in these last few weeks? I don't know. I'm struggling to think about movies because I've probably been watching more TV shows, but I've watched so lately I've been watching Mindhunter.
Oh, cool.
And the Explained series on Netflix as well.
Oh, cool.
I enjoy that a lot.
I think like I like take my films very seriously, but like my TV show taste is like so basic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I love Riverdale because it's just so bad. I'm just like, how can you be so bad at making a TV show? Like, it's just addictive in a way.
That's it. And I think it's about like looking more at art and the different ways that that it's like expressed as all being relevant, as it being what it is. Like,
like the
and
different ways it can fit into your life.
That's right, and it relates to different people differently. There's nothing really to say that one is better than the other, and it's all constructed.
Yeah. I'm sure there's lots of things better than Riverdale. But
yeah, but then again, like, depends, like, why was it written? Like, you know, does it fulfill that? Like, does it fulfill something in you? Like,
the enjoyment of just, you know, vegging out and laughing at bad writing.
That's right. Yeah. There you go.
And you're kind of already talking about this, but as someone who's like an audience member or a consumer of an art form, what does art do for you?
For me, it's like, I think as an audience member, it's a weird relationship because it's difficult to fully articulate what art means to me, because it's pervasive and it like exists in very different parts of my life, and like it's in the different moments, like that I might be like listening to a song when something is happening and how I connect to that. And what that then means for that particular day. So yeah, that's how I kind of, I guess, relate to it. In more so how I consume it and where I consume it and what's also happening around me.
Yeah, and do you remember the first time you connected with the arts?
The first time that I connected with the arts, so when I think probably like the earliest memory that I really have, at least being an active participant, and I think it was only when I was kind of like participating in it that I made that connection. So I used to be a big fan of Diddy or Puff Daddy, and Missy Elliott as well. And what I would do is I would try and put together some of their lyrics.
Oh, cool.
As part of like saying that this is now my thing that I created. And I would have all these different songs that had like completely different narratives just joined together, and and sometimes I'd mix in some of my own stuff in there, but that was like a way for me to find a way to like express myself, but using their words as mediums to be able to do that.
And you're like connecting on it with a deeper level by putting yourself in it, probably. And
maybe, exactly. That's one way to look at it, actually. I just thought I was
my story now.
But I remember like when I first played it for my parents and my sister, and everyone was so proud of me, but at the same time knowing that this wasn't anything that I really created.
Like, good work.
But that, I mean, I think that also speaks to the power of like people encouraging you to do stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you have like been on TikTok, but there's like a trend of like people being like, when you're like 8 and you like do a dance performance for your parents, and they're all just like, oh, wonderful.
Yep.
You can stop now.
Yep. Yeah. Nah, that's it. It's funny.
Yeah. And how did that kind of develop into you like starting to like seriously engage with like the aesthetics of words and how they sound, because you're kind of both in poetry and rap?
Yeah, so as far as I think my journey in terms of navigating like language and I guess like even like in how I was going to deliver, whether it was by poetry or by me doing like music, I think I really started off just having the connection like say from that story, and I just always had like the connection with the music in that way, and I always wanted to see myself as a rapper. And then I think around the same time as well, that's when I had a really, really big interest in just how language can transform situations, whether you're in conversation with someone or whether it's something that you're writing for something. And I used to see this in the ways that, like, I would hand in, like, say, assignments that I had to do for my English class, and just seeing the difference in grades that I would get when I was fully expressive and when I wasn't.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
How did that turn out?
It was really, really interesting. So I used to, and language is like an interesting thing too, because there's all these rules, and they teach you these rules like at school. And I realized that I think one of your greatest strengths as a writer is being able to recognize where those rules are and where you have room and freedom for you to do other things with those rules and pretty much create your own from there. So for me, it materialized in like doing it was a essay that I had to do for Shrek. Yeah. Yeah, it was a analysis.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, of the movie. I think it was the first one. And I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna go in and I'm just gonna actually really express myself and not think too much about all these different things. And yeah, I ended up like getting a really, really good grade for it, and they put me in like an accelerate English class and stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, it was all legit. But I was like also one of the most unlikely people that you would see in one of those classes. And it's a funny story because that on my first day of that class, well, it's not really a funny story, it's a sad story. But on my first day of that class, the teacher just couldn't believe that I was supposed to be in the class. And yeah, so I walked in, she was the head of English, the one who had actually read the assignment, was like, this person needs to be in my class. And then I go to her class. I was late because I was playing basketball. So I come in, like my pants are sagging and I'm holding my basketball in one hand, and I walk into the classroom and then, yeah, she's just looking at me like in a very weird way, because I just went in and I sat at the back. I didn't say anything to anybody. I was like, classes started. Yeah, like, you know, I just didn't think to do anything else. Yeah. And then she goes like, hey, you come out to the front. You know, and she was like, what are you doing here? And I was like, I just got transferred into this classroom, and tried to explain that to her. And she was like, you're not supposed to be here. And it was like, whoa, like, you know, in the classroom full of really smart kids already, and you're just kind of like there up the front. And I was just like, oh shit, okay. And then she stepped out and then went to talk to the other teacher, and the other teacher was like, yeah, no, that's yeah.
I don't know, I find like English teachers can make or break you, and they can be like,
it's big. It's big. So ever since then, I've just dedicated everything I've ever written. Nah, but it's no lie though. I really do operate like that, because sometimes I'm really petty.
Yeah, I remember like one of my English teachers, because I transferred to a different school in like the final year of high school, and I did like what's it called? Like the advanced English. I think it was called English Studies in South Australia. And the teacher was like, she didn't really like me, because I think the rest of the students she had, like for all of high school, she kind of trained them up to be in her, you know, advanced English class in the final year. And then I was just like this intruder. Yeah. And once like I submitted something, and she just like accused me of plagiarism. She's like, it's too good to be yours. Yep. Yeah. I got held back from school like after and everything, and I had to like miss my bus. And
it's so embarrassing too. Like, I didn't. Yeah, I think it's just that idea of someone like not believing in you. It's just like, yeah. And yeah, it really can. And I think it depends with like then how you navigate that situation after you come across it. Like, is this person really going to define everything, or am I going to try and change it after?
Yeah, it can give you more grit in a way, and you can't just be like, oh, okay, true, like, I can't do anything. Or you can be like, I'll show you, like.
yeah, that's it. I was very much always like, I'll show you.
Yeah. And what kind of came first? Was it the poetry or the rap?
So it was definitely the rap that came first, and then when I was like first exposed to poetry was when I did I was just like watching YouTube, and I was listening to Kanye West, and the next video up was just of him doing something for Def Poetry Jam. And I was like, this is cool. Yeah, here's a guy who's like, he raps.
Yeah.
And I was like very much like a big fan. And when I saw that, I was like, maybe I can like try and do this as well. And I started doing that out of my bedroom for a while. And I was like,
cool.
You know what? Yeah. Like, spoken word poetry is really cool, because there's like a lot of different videos that you can watch, and everyone has their own style.
Yeah.
It's really expressive. And yeah, I started doing that for a while, and from there I ended up entering a poetry competition, because there wasn't any open mic nights like they have now these days. So everything was in competition.
Yeah.
Or at least I didn't know where to go. Yeah, it was cool. So I ended up becoming the third in Queensland.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I was like, oh shit, I'm not bad.
Yeah. After that time in your bedroom performing.
Yeah. So it was fun.
Oh, cool. And kind of like, I'm just wondering, with like, you get poetry and rap. So one came first, another one came later. How have they kind of like crossed over, and but also like been separate from one another as you've gone on?
Yeah, like, I think it's very much in the same way that you've also asked the question. It's it's for me, it's actually changed in the way that I view the two over time. I used to think of them as being very separate from each other, and in fact, when I would write, I would be like, okay, I'm putting on my poet hat, and I'm gonna write this as a poet would write this. And then when I do my music, I'm like, I'm gonna write this as a rapper would write this. And then over time, just realizing that no, this is all very much the same. It's just words, and sometimes you rhyme them, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you're kind of like bound by the beat and what that allows you to do. But at the very core of it, like, the message that you're saying is still ultimately the same. The techniques that you're using is still ultimately the same. And yes, I've kind of grown into now looking at the two and being like, you know what, they're one and the same thing. So it's, even when I'm writing now, I'm trying not to have this thing where I'm like, I'm doing this for this. I'm just writing, and then whatever comes out of that process is that.
Oh, that's cool. So you're kind of like, when you're a teenager, you're like getting into it and you're starting to perform, and then like you've been doing that since as well. But you didn't go to like art school or do a literature degree. You did business and psychology. Is that right? So like, how have you found kind of like balancing like kind of a like creative career with a more professional one?
It's been tough, but I think at the same time, it's probably what's made me progress in both of those. And I say that from the perspective that as a performer, and even as a writer, like, I mean, if you're doing some business writing, or you're now even overqualified, to write whatever you need to write. But at the same time, like, the stuff that I've learned from, like, say, my professional, non-creative life has definitely helped me in terms of being able to market myself and do all of that as well. Like in terms of the business administration of running your own business as a creative person.
It's kind of giving more perspective.
It's giving me more perspective, and also and also equipped me with the right things that I kind of need to navigate whatever comes next.
That's cool. I find that like some people who are kind of like 100% in their creative lives might not kind of have the acumen to structure it in a way that they can deliver into the world in a nice, impactful way.
And I mean, it's like that, but at the same time, it's like everything is a process. Like, I say that, but then there's also like parts of my art that I think also suffer because I don't have as much time to focus purely on that. There's ideas that I have that I can never fully see becoming real because I can't invest that much time into that single thing. So there's definitely some things that you give up in that process.
Yeah, the pros and cons. And I thought I'd talk more about kind of your creative process, because you're a writer and that's kind of like a self-reflective process. You're doing it in isolation, but then you're kind of delivering that in a very public-facing way through performance. So I'm just wondering, what do you keep in mind when you are writing for performance?
So when I'm writing for performance, I tend to think more about, and it's one of those things, I hate it. Like, I absolutely, I hate the fact that I have to make concessions for other people. And I know that sounds selfish, but I don't necessarily like that part of the process where you have to allow for it, but I understand its necessity because like as you might want to think of art as something that is, purely for yourself. And that's me coming from that perspective, but at the same time looking at it and being like, you know what? Like, at the end of the day, I also do get something from it. Like, people do come up to me and they're like, oh, I like this performance and stuff like that. And that, on some level, still gives you some level of satisfaction.
That's nice. And how do you kind of go about, like, I can imagine if it was me and, performing poetry, because I write some poetry, but I'd, like, never show it to anyone because it's so, like, personal. How do you kind of manage showing those, like, more vulnerable parts to yourself in the process of performance? It's like, do I manage? Like, fetal position afterwards.
We laugh, but no, seriously. So it's crazy because I don't think that I consciously think about it. But I think I am managing. If that makes sense. I don't consciously think about how I'm about to go up and I'm going to do this piece that's also speaking to something that's very real about something that I might have experienced or what have you. I think what tends to happen is that I think that I'm by myself when I'm on stage. And I don't really see those people, and I try not to.
And what about the more sort of like performance abilities, such as, I think this is probably both with like rap and poetry and how they lay over with like tempo and breathing and rhythm. Is that difficult, or does that come naturally?
I don't think it comes like naturally. It's a lot of practice. It's a lot of practice for you to be aware of the different ways in which you can use all of those tools and devices. It's very much a process. Like, say for example, I think some of my first performances that are still on the internet because I haven't been able to ask the people that have them up to remove them.
Yeah.
But like I see that a lot. I'm like, oh shit, I still didn't know how to do this, and I still didn't know, like, you know, how to, like, say, navigate this particular line or whatever that I might be saying. And now just realizing that I have so much awareness of the freedom and flexibility that I have when I'm on stage, whether it's before I actually get on stage and I'm writing the material to when I'm actually on stage in terms of how I present something. It just looks like this canvas where I'm like, I can paint whatever I want to here.
Yeah. Do, like, over time become more conscientious of the different, like, tools that you have and how you can use them?
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's like, it's a good thing. For sure. I think it allows you to go deep on, like, on something and really like express it in the way that you want to.
Yeah, that's cool. And I was kind of thinking also about, you know, your work is like a lot of storytelling, but also in some of the poems I was watching online, you kind of like reference the process of writing and about being a creative person and how you've put things together.
Yep.
So why do you reflect on creativity so much?
I don't know. I think it's born out of frustration.
Yeah.
It's definitely born out of that, and I think it's worthwhile also documenting the process that creates some of the art that we enjoy. I think, and yeah, like, say, for example, in writing Gladiator, I wrote it for the competition. And it was almost me kind of looking at the fact that, I have this upcoming thing, which is the Grand Slam championship thing that I have to do. But at the same time, there's only certain kinds of pieces that will get me the points to win. And I really want to go to the States. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then realizing just how crazy that was, that I had to write a particular type of piece for me to feel like, this would be the piece that would get me the points that I need.
Yeah.
So I wrote this one because I was like, I'll only perform this one as the very last one, because at that point I don't care because I'm on the team. Yeah. So it was kind of like that.
But it did really well. You got to go to the States.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it was fun.
And what was that what was it like being like, oh my god, like my work is taking me overseas? Like how was that experience for you?
It's despite like what the piece talks about, it's validating. to get like that external validation, and also considering that a lot of the people that do come to these events are also some of your peers within the spoken word community of wherever you might be. It was definitely one of those things. I was like, like I can say that I did this. It's not just me. Like, you know, I think like every time or at least for me at like the stage that I'm at in my creative career, I look at it and I'm like, it's hard to, sometimes you look at everything that you've done and you don't necessarily look at it as being official yet. Yeah. Like, nah, but I'm just, just doing this, like, after work, and sometimes I hang out with my friends and we're on stage.
It's hard to have perspective of your own life, I guess.
That's right. So it's interesting when like people invite you to do podcasts and you're like, what am I going to talk about? I'm just a guy who sometimes goes off and does poetry and I rap sometimes.
I guess you can always compare yourself to like other people around you. Like, oh, my friend does not perform at poetry slams and win. And
that's it.
Do this other stuff. I mean, it's funny being in the creative communities because I guess because like everyone around you is doing so much stuff, you can always forget to legitimize your own work.
Yeah, yeah,
that's the validity and the value in it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and kind of like going off that, like, where do you think, like, how would you define the place you are right now in your creative career?
I think I'm in a place where I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really happy that I can do shows and people turn up.
Yeah.
I'm happy that like I have the flexibility to be able to create some of the beautiful things that I imagine. And yeah, it's like, it's one of those things. It's like, there's obviously levels that are beyond what I'm already currently doing. I could be working, full time as a creative person as like the next way to say perhaps maybe elevate from that. But I think it's really important for me to acknowledge the fact that I'm in a very good place right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice. It'd be cool to talk more about kind of the industries you're working in, which is very interesting because you're kind of in there's like, you know, rap, hip hop, but also spoken word.
Yeah.
I think in my head, in the very cliche way, I'm just like, wow, those like, they'll just have different audiences, different people participating.
Yeah.
But like, rap is like very cool, and then like poetry is like dorky.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know what I'm asking here.
No, go ahead.
But like, I guess like, what have you found in both those communities what has been like the most valuable parts, but also the detrimental aspects that you would like to see improved?
Yeah. So I think for spoken word, so just detrimental aspects
and valuable, like,
and valuable.
Guess, yeah.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I feel like you're bad-mouthing people without sandwiching it in a compliment.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think for spoken word, one of the things that I've seen, at least from my experience, that has been really positive is that gateway for me to be able to connect with so many different people. It's so accessible. There's there's like old people, there's there's young people in the audience, there's people who believe in entirely different things altogether. And it depends on obviously like where you go with some of the open mic nights and stuff like that. But because of the nature of it being poetry, it lends itself to at least open up dialogue and conversation between people who otherwise wouldn't have had a meaningful one-to-one conversation with each other. So within those spaces you can often talk about very difficult things, and I think it also makes people comfortable to actually approach other people to talk about them, and I think that's very valuable. And I think as far as hip hop and what I see as being valuable within that particular community, and also just the art form itself, it's just another form of expression, and it makes it so accessible, and especially for younger people as well. And yeah, one of the things that I often think about, and it was after seeing, I think it was like an interview with JPEG Mafia, and yeah, there was a quote or something rather, which was talking about rap being one of the best art forms out there, and it's very difficult for you to ever truly articulate that to someone.
Yeah.
If you look at the way that rap and hip hop has evolved over time, the way music sounds, and you compare it to, say, other genres that have pretty much also remained the same.
Yeah.
Like rap, the instruments have changed. Like the tones, the lyrics, the structures. Sometimes it's like like the way that he was describing it was like it becomes formless. And you can kind of do whatever you want within it. And I personally enjoy that freedom and flexibility. And I think I even feel it more so, especially now, than I do with the poetry. I used to think that poetry was more free because it didn't have the beats. But I think, rap is probably even more so now.
Yeah. That's awesome. And what about the detrimental parts of both?
Yeah, so as far as like the detrimental parts, I think they probably like what I have to say probably sits with both of them. I think recognition of the other and its legitimacy.
Yeah.
And also the oneness of the two. Because it's like, it's a very different reaction that I'll get from an audience when I say that I'm a rapper. And in front of a spoken word audience.
Yeah.
And also when I say that I'm a poet, there's a lot of different associations that people then start to make before. And then when I actually perform, they're like, yeah, he really is a mix of like rap and poetry. So I think, at least from my own personal experience, that's one thing that I think people should have greater awareness over.
Yeah, I guess there's kind of can be like these canons in the, or like silos in the arts. Like, you know, you can be, you know, in visual arts and you're here, and then there's like, you're a poet and you're in here. Yeah. And, you know, you're a rapper, you're over here. But there's like, more often or not, there's like blending, and people do lots of different things with their talents, and they might fit into different industries or subcultures of the arts. Yeah,
and I think we tend to naturally just want things to be easy for us, but they're not. Yeah. We can't just say that this is this and this is that.
Yeah. With like the spoken word industry, like I've noticed that your poems will use a lot of like very clear language that like most people could engage with, which I think might be kind of across the spoken word sort of genre, kind of compared to written, like on the page poetry, which might use more abstract language, which is, I think, is really cool, because often you can be like, something can be very clearly communicated, but in a very impactful way. Yeah. 'Cause a lot of spoken word, isn't it, like mostly like talking about things that are more political or like social justice and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess kind of like, what are your comments on that, kind of the accessibility of spoken word?
Yeah, like I think as far as like, say, what I see as being topics that are covered within spoken word, I think it's like people talk about everything. Like, and because of that, it makes it really accessible. Like, what you end up seeing mostly on say YouTube and stuff like that, is usually the stuff that also grips you from an emotional perspective, and also grips you from that perspective that it's looking at things that relate to a lot more people, and usually you tie that to, say, identity or something. But that doesn't make poetry any more inaccessible because of it. In fact, it kind of just illustrates the time that we live in, because these are the topics that you end up having a perception of what it is, but it's not truly reflective when you actually go to the open mic nights. So that's the reason why I was saying that, like, I could go up and say I wanted to do a poem about X, like, which is like something not really that meaningful, but my ability to be able to win the competition is now severely impacted.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, as you're talking, I was kind of thinking, like, most of my exposure of from spoken word poetry is the things that go viral on Facebook.
That's right. Yeah.
That sort of thing.
It's not all that serious.
Yeah.
But it is
yeah.
in some ways. And sometimes people tackle it in different formats.
Yeah. So I guess there's also like the flip side that it can be very accessible, but also very inaccessible. I guess, yeah, as you're saying, like the pressure for competitions affecting the way that you write. And I guess for people who are listening who don't really know what slams are, you can correct me because this is just kind of like my Googling.
Yeah, sure.
So for like at a slam competition, a poet will like perform their own piece. They have a time limit, and then judges are chosen from the audience, and then they will give a score or like is it like an applause or something like that?
Yeah. So it's so there'll be like 5 judges. I think 5, it like changes. But yeah, it's typically 5 judges, and they have a scorecard that they hold up, and they have to give a score between 1 and 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, you've done well in this process because you did win the what is it, the slam
Slam Ding Dong. Yeah.
And you went to Chicago, as you were saying before, for the National Poetry Slam. I'm just wondering, like, how necessary is for someone maybe like you or someone else who is, developing their spoken word poetry to participate in these slams?
That's like it's a tough question. It's like I did this, like I went through the whole thing of competing in like the slam competitions to the point where I won, and I was like, I don't know if I want to enter another one. Like you know what I mean? And there's others that I could obviously enter. But at the same time, it's like, I guess what I would say from it is that I would actually encourage people to do it.
Yeah.
But I think it's also about being able to recognize when you feel like it's no longer serving you in the same way that you thought it might.
Yeah.
And for me, the way that that's happened has been through, like, so one of the main things that I took out from competing in the competitions was the experience that I actually got by flying over to the States and being in the same space with some of the artists that I actually looked up to, and realizing that there's different things that happen because poetry is happening here at a local level. Whereas here in Australia, we're in our own bubble. Yeah. And then taking like my poems there and realizing, it's like, oh, this is very different from what they do here.
Yeah.
And I think I've always wanted to do that. Like, it's cool seeing someone else do that.
Yeah.
It, like, kind of gives me legitimacy to, like, come back. So I came back and I was like, holy shit, this is something really, really important that I'd learned. But then at the same time, I was, like, challenged by this idea that, of performing on stages and, having to give so much of yourself. And what for? Like, you know, and now, like, thinking about it, I'm like, I still want to perform, but I also want to dictate the terms around how I do that.
Yeah.
And I also want to perhaps maybe build a more solid foundation and find a way to actually monetize it outside of these external institutions that don't really provide a means for you to be able to make a decent enough income from what you're doing. So do you find in some ways the slam sort of structure can limit experimentation? So it's like it limits experimentation, and it doesn't, because you could also come up with an idea that grabs the room. Because
I guess it could drive it as well, because you're
it could drive it as well.
Risk-taking aspect of it.
For me, like an example of that would be, say, Gladiator. I turned around and I started addressing the judges directly. Towards the end of the piece, which is also experimenting. But at the same time, I think it's more so about, I'd like to see more happy poems and slam. You know what I mean? But that's just me personally. But I also see why some of these other pieces get more points, and I applaud that. It's just that within that context, that's all you really can make room for.
And what are audiences like? Are most people in the audience kind of people who are also writing poetry, or would you just get people who enjoy it?
I think you get people who enjoy it, and then people who also write. Sometimes people write stuff and then I share.
Secret poet.
Exactly. You get a pretty mixed audience, which is always cool, and because sometimes people come up and be like, this is my first time seeing something like this, and
cool.
It's completely kind of blown my mind.
I think this year I really wanted to go to the Spoken Word Festival, because I don't think I've ever been to something like that. And it was just a really busy few weeks, and it was I kept the algorithm just knew that that's what I wanted to do. So Facebook was just constantly showing me these amazing events, and I was I really want to go, but schedules,
No, I get that.
So you recently hosted something called A Secret Show.
Yes. So
how does that kind of fit into the stuff you're talking about, kind of escaping the structures and making something for yourself?
So The Secret Show is just when I get together with a group of my friends and people that I really enjoy collaborating with. And we pick a location, and we keep it secret for 3 months whilst we're planning this massive project. And as part of the whole thing, people don't know where it is. They don't know who else is performing. And they don't know what it'll be and what kind of structure and format that will take. So this last one that we did was myself, and I invited some other multidisciplinary artists that I knew that were doing stuff that I was interested in, where they're mixing projections with their spoken word or their music. And we had it in this big warehouse type location, which had these massive white walls. So the photography studios have those cycloramas. And it looks like you're kind of sitting in an endless space.
Beautiful.
So when you put projections on that, it also gives it that same kind of impression, but from the audience perspective. So we had these big videos that were playing over the top of the people actually standing in front, performing, and it was a vibe. But the way that it kind of, I guess, fits in within the Melbourne poetry scene is it's I obviously invite people that I look up to, and it's a mixture of rappers and, and poets as well, and singers, and and it just becomes this event. But it's kind of removing those barriers that we create to separate art because sometimes I want to use all of those different things. Like I want to rap, and also want to do my poems, and I want to show you this cool little video, like you know, and I want to do like, you know, whilst I'm on stage, I'm gonna do some theatrical stuff too, like you know. So it's like it's wanted to just be, like and provide freedom,
like creating the event that you wanted.
Exactly. Because I think before you actually, and I think that's where I see a lot of, like, say, other artists get stumped on, is that, like, it's easy for you to, like, quit what you're doing because you haven't necessarily been given the right resources for you to produce what you want to with like no risk. You know, but at the same time it's also one of those validating things to like start something from scratch and be like, okay, gonna build this out. And I'm lucky that like I work with my wife, and we kind of work as a team in that way, like in terms of putting together some of these shows.
That's so cool. It seems like it would take like a lot of vision as well. We like plan out the whole year and do a whole thing and be like, we want to do this and do that. And that's amazing. Does she do poetry as well?
She writes poetry as well. She like looks at different mediums as well, as far as like ways to express herself. So there's like the poetry, like film directing, and also doing some visual art as well, stuff as well. So she was one of the secret show artists that we had too.
Amazing. Yeah. Sounds like such a great event.
That was fun.
And kind of like, I feel like when we're talking about like poetry a lot, we could talk more about hip hop as well. I kind of went down like a little bit of a rabbit hole because I don't listen to a lot of hip hop. To be honest, my partner does. But like, I just feel like maybe just subconsciously I've never given it the time of day. And then I kind of fell like down a little bit of a rabbit hole, and I was like, oh wow, like it's actually quite cool because I love like when I'm listening to music, I'm really like addicted to lyrics and how people use lyrics to express themselves and tell stories.
Like it's crazy because there's so many like hidden gems that like lie within hip hop. Like some of the world's greatest poets are just rappers, like you know. And the crazy thing is, it's so easy for somebody to like not look at it based on the way that it's been presented to us, or like the negative connotations that we sometimes hear. But yeah, there's a lot of like a lot of like life lessons and a lot of things that are articulated in the best way that they possibly could through rap. Like, and I was like kind of reading about like the history and how it's like very like kind of New York based, and it's kind of come out of that, and people kind of reflecting what life is like for them in certain suburbs in a certain period of time. So then in Australia it kind of only started to develop, and people kind of replicating America for a while, and it only just started in the last 2 decades to kind of start reflecting like the Australian experience, or whatever people are experiencing in Australia, and identity and stuff like that. So I'm just kind of like, that's what I read. But, how true, like, how much, I'm just wondering, like, as for you, because you, like, you're Australian, you're born in Zimbabwe. I'm actually a Kiwi. But
Kiwi? Oh, are you?
I'm a Kiwi and I'm a Zimbabwean as well.
Oh, cool. So I'm just kind of wondering, how did you navigate the kind of, like, the Americanness of hip-hop and rap, and how did you kind of come into your own in it when you're developing your style? So when I was really young, and I would write raps about, I don't know, like say my principal or something that I didn't like. And that was very much my life. I was also listening to 50 Cent. I was like listening to like Eminem.
And that period like went on for a very long time, where my own writing was very much influenced by what I was also listening to. And because I was also so young, I was trying to use those same ways of expressing that they were, to kind of express what was going on in my own life, but it was never truly representative, because I'd have to like make things up about like, you know, and I'm just like, this isn't actually like, you know, I'm not like in a gang. Like, you know, I'm not like, you know, my life actually doesn't look like this, but my life is unique in its own. And there are certain stories that I have that I want to share and that I want to tell, that that I think are worthwhile expressing, at least from my point of view, because there's other people that will be able to relate to them as having these like, you know, like say growing up African in Australia or in New Zealand as well, and what that actually means. So if anything, I think what's happened for me is more so the realization that I am a mix of many different things, and the way that I kind of navigate the world will be influenced by all of those different things. But ultimately, what I truly want to capture is the subtle nuances of my everyday existence.
With those nuances, how does rap specifically let you capture those nuances, maybe with like its lyrics or music, compared to something, another sort of medium?
I think, so when it comes to rap, you have a lot more freedom in terms of how you express yourself, because obviously now it's tied to the music as well, and the way that that's arranged. But then again, that's also your own canvas as well, depending on how you work. There was this artist that I whose interview I was reading about. I think it was called JPEG Mafia, and was specifically talking about how rap is formless, and it's one of those art forms that really truly gives you the full range of possible expression. And I think really what he was trying to speak to was the fact that if you listen to music, or like rap music, like in the 90s, and you listen to it in the 2010s, and you listen to it now, it's very different. There's the subgenres that exist within that, but if you listen to other forms of music, they all kind of relatively sound the same as they always have. But rap is like constantly evolving, and because of that, is probably one of the most authentic ways that we can truly express ourselves through music.
Yeah, has there been any sort of writing or recording processes for you that has really revealed that freedom?
I think just even having the flexibility to mix my poetry and my rap and look at them as two things that are very different, but at the same time the same, has allowed me to do that. Now, like, I even play around like harmonizing with within my range. Yeah. Or at least I think so. But yeah, it's just knowing that like you have a lot of tools at your disposal that you can use at any given moment to tell your story. Yeah,
and kind of speaking more about rap in the creative industries and audience perception, had this funny experience recently And the people I'm about to talk about probably will be listening to this podcast, but I'm sure they will see the humor in it looking back. But they're kind of bad talking rap, because they're speaking about pop music and saying, you know, it's so annoying when like some rap it comes on when you're listening to a pop song, and like in 2020 we should just get rid of this trend. It's just so annoying. And it kind of made me think about like, you know, not everyone has to like all types of music, but what is it about rap that kind of makes people kind of withdraw a little bit or feel a little bit defensive? And how can people kind of open themselves up more to enjoy it? Like, what sort of things should people be looking for when they're listening to it and enjoying it some more?
I think that rap music can be extremely confronting. And whether that's like, I guess what you'd think about when you hear a song that's also perhaps maybe political, and is also within the format that rap usually comes in, like, you know, people are rhyming and like they're really vibing to the beat and everything. And then there's also like the rap that's also like very sexual in terms of like some of the things that it expresses. It's very open, it's very raw. People are telling their life stories, and because of that, I think that's what tends to lead people to not want to have so much of a connection with it, because I think it's confronting in that way. Listening to, say, I don't know, like say Jay-Z's earlier stuff, or like 21 Savage, or Chief Keef, or any of these rappers talk about their lives, like talk about like how sometimes they might have had like a really rough upbringing. Like, that's confronting because it's real, and then sometimes people try to act like it isn't.
Do you think, like, in some ways it's a bit classist? Like, people don't want to be exposed to songs that talk about rough experiences?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Or stories that don't look like their own?
Yeah. And I think sometimes people also think about, I think the glorification of some of the things that are expressed within rap is being the things that they end up like trying to, I guess, separate themselves from. But there's also the harsh realities of the very world that we live in. And if anything, this is just allowing us to have a discussion about it and talk about ways for us to be able to fix it.
So I guess what you're kind of saying is that rap is kind of very expansive in what it can talk about, but then we kind of like have this double standard because we don't like it doing so, but then like other art forms we let them.
No, it's insane that when you're listening to like say rap music, we don't ever, I think, liken it to some of the films that we watch, and the stories that they try to tell, and the format in which that they're also told. They're very graphic. In fact, sometimes they're very visual. And with rap, whether you're talking about the violence that exists within it, or you're talking about the, I guess, some of the other topics that are also explored within that, it's so easy for us to detach it from the rest of the world that we actually live in, and the fact that this all exists around us, and it's just somebody who's actually trying to tell the story, but they're doing it in their own way.
Yeah, and I guess in a way that there is like this, you know, we need art forms and music that lets people talk about things like violence or uncomfortable life experiences, and especially, I guess, rap is fairly dominated by men, and the men don't often get those spaces either to poetically and emotionally talk about those things.
Oh, definitely. I think it's a really big outlet for that. And what's always interesting with rap as well is like how I was talking about, like how it's like constantly evolving, and that's one of the things that I really like about it. I feel like more recently there's probably been more of a recognition that, or acceptance that rap can also it doesn't have to like manifest itself in a violent manner. I think we went from like gangster rap to like rappers now singing, and that's cool. Like,
yeah.
and some of the things that they're talking about or like rapping about are, yeah, they're just very different topics to what was what used to be explored before. Like talking about like, you know, love in a different way. Not to say that they haven't before. It's just that it seems more in touch with who these people genuinely are. Yeah,
I kind of noticed that when I knew you were coming on the podcast, I tried to listen to a bit more rap when I'm in the car and stuff, and listen to it with a bit more of an open mind. And I was like, oh wow, like some of these concepts are actually quite sweet.
Yeah.
And kind of just like really gentle in a way. And then I was like kind of studying my own internal bias that these songs, because they like, you know, originally were associated with more different things that I just assumed all songs in rap were kind of, you know, going down that path, but
it's not even predominantly like that's the way that it's. You also have to think about I guess what's popular music and why is it popular music?
Yeah, exactly.
And all the things that come into that. But yeah, there's a lot of variety.
Exactly. And I don't even think like we really need to make a case for it. There's obviously like a huge audience.
Exactly.
And lots of people who get like a lot from it. And you've said a couple of times you're a Kanye fan, and you know he recently, I guess recently, it's kind of been like 3 or 4 months now, released his newest album, which was kind of like hyper religious. I'm just wondering what your opinions are on that album, and is like religion like much of a theme in rap music, or is this something that's kind of new?
I think it's definitely a theme in rap music. It's difficult for me specifically to talk about it because it's not something that I've always necessarily sought out. So I don't think I'm the best person to talk about that particular aspect of it. But I can say that I actually like the album. I think there was just certain parts that that I didn't really like, and that was probably more so because of the song itself and the structure of it than it being about the topic of it. I think it's admirable that he's doing something like this. At the same time, I also realize the complexities that kind of exist within that as somebody who has the catalog that he has. Yeah, and why do you think it's admirable? Very often people try to tell you not to do things because they're, I think, projecting their own fears onto you. They're thinking that this may not make sense within this context because of this. So I think sometimes for me, like my admiration of, like say, an artist like Kanye West is more so, I think, what those actions of his symbolically represent. Not all of them, but but I take the good stuff when I can. Yeah. How do you think it compares to his other albums? It's nowhere near some of his other albums, but it was good to get a new album this year. I mean, I didn't listen to him much. Really liked Life of Pablo. Yeah, I thought it was super fun. No, Life of Pablo was fun. And I think quite a lot of people probably didn't think that was his best work either. Yeah. I'd probably recommend listening to My Dark Twisted Fantasy. All right, cool. Yeah. Thanks for the recommendation. It's all good. Unsolicited, but it's all good. Just to close up, what can we see from you in the next 12 months? I haven't done my 2020 plan, so right now we're in December. Yeah. And yeah, I need to have my New Year's resolutions ready. But yeah, I think for 2020, I want to write more music, and I want to, I want to release that, like properly. And yeah, I want to see where that journey kind of takes me. So I just want to focus on writing and performing music. Yeah. Cool. Uh-huh. Okay. Uh-huh. Okay. These are the ramblings of a street philosopher. I lead with love locked up and let loose as these fears through my amygdala. My pain tatted in these pages. I don't care for your assumptions, it was all for your consumption. I smile a lot, but I'm not okay. I wonder, do they see me? I ain't built like that, I ain't flexed like that. I ain't never been your hero, I ain't been Bruce Wayne. Look at my blue face, we don't talk like that. We don't talk back either. If I shared my feelings, would you share your demons? Told my brothers that I love them, but we don't say that either. Everything was all good just a week ago. Somehow I can't remember where the weekends go. Time moves fast, and life is just a daze. And routine the existence I couldn't capture in this frame. Just a series of events only drama could explain. Where happy's just a state, a temporary state of mind that is all up in your brain. Diseases seem to change, but everything remains the same. Somewhere along the line, life became this rhyme, a facade of fake smiles entertained by these lines. These aren't bars, that's the story of my life. How they love how I be glistening, love how I be dripping. And I ain't mad, and I certainly ain't tripping. I'm dripping in a permanent melanin elegance that only seeks to remind you that black is excellence. I know these folk get critical when I say I'm not political, but you don't know what I've been living through. When you only have to look at me to label me as criminal. It is my body, not me, that embodies it, that you're describing as political.
What this is saying then is that just as you don't know how you manage to be conscious, how you manage to grow and shape this body of yours, that doesn't mean to say that you're not doing it.
Okay.
Equally, you don't know how the universe shines the stars, constellates the constellation, and galactifies the galaxies. You don't know. But that doesn't mean to say that you aren't doing it in just the same way as you're breathing without knowing how you breathe.
Thank you so much for plugging in and listening to my little podcast today. If you want to hear more of In the Arts, episodes are on all podcast apps like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, etc. Wherever you find your podcast, it will be there. And these are released each Thursday, probably until early March, unless, of course, I decide to make some more. Admittedly, though, this is a bit of an experiment for me. I have no performance or public speaking experience, so I'm coming to this very green. So it would mean the world to me if you could let me know if you are listening and enjoying the show. You can do so by subscribing on one of those podcast apps. You can leave a review, which would be lovely. Or you could even just do something like popping a screenshot of the episode in your Instagram story. You can tag me. My Instagram is TanSuperdry. Like the beer, Han Superdry. I'll pop this all in the show notes. Again, thanks for listening.